Okay, welcome to this episode of Behind the Line 50 Plus. So today we're going to go into the Snake Couloir on Mount Sneffels. So we are looking here on the Onyx map at the San Juan Mountains of southern Colorado. So I could zoom out really far and oh, there's Colorado. We're just going to zoom straight into this blue line and look at Mount Sneffels. So Mount Sneffels, really cool mountain. Happens to be on the cover of this right here, Tin Cup. There's Mount Sneffels, the 14er. So there's something with booze in the San Juans because from the top of Mount Sneffels, you can see Coors Light Peak, meaning Mount Wilson. So yeah, the San Juans and booze go really well together. Talking about the line. So again, this series just is going to go more in depth about these lines themselves. So it sounds like there's multiple approaches to get to the Snake Couloir. I kind of heard that this other approach, I don't know this other approach, but the only one I could find while looking at the map was this one out of Ouray, which goes all the way up to Camp Bird, and I feel like it was Bird Road, but it sounded like the road was washed out or something or other, but that this road maybe goes all the way up into here, and then you could maybe just tour up this backside, and there is on Onyx, a route that says Mount Sneffels Lavender Ascent, 2.6 miles, 2,800 foot in gain. So, if you're going to get to here via road, it's a pretty short access to get up to the top of the Snake Couloir. So, but it sounded like there was where it was like trees fell down or the road was washed out. So whatever, that wasn't an approach. But people were like kind of bummed about that. I don't know if that's a regular approach, but we went I would say the more scenic approach, which was the Blue Lakes Northern Trailhead approach, which is pretty much just driving straight up from Ridgeway, right up these dirt roads. Here's Ridgeway. Ridgeway's out of here. It's like as if you're driving a Telluride, and then you just go follow up these roads all the way up to here. No service while you're out there, so download your Onyx maps before you get out there. That's really, really important. Get your offline map downloaded before you get out there. Let you know about that. So this was where we got to, depending on the time of year. It seems like where you're going to be able to camp totally depends on where the snow is. So this was where the snow line was for us. You can see Mount Sneffels right at the tippy top right there. See what the other photo is. Yeah, snowy, muddy road. We did it at a time of year where it was an absolute pain in the ass. It was probably it's like 100 meters of dirt, 100 meters of snow, 100 meters of dirt, 100 meters of snow. For this entire frickin' way. There was one kind of crux point, which was making a left turn. This is me using the map, which I used a lot because it was kind of confusing. It was in the dark. Certain ways, following up the creek, I did get kind of turned around, usually kind of have a sense we're in the backcountry where we're going. There was the trail was making some weird turns. The creek was making some weird turns. So I used this screenshot of using the map because I was actually pulling up the map quite a lot. I was like, where are we? Where is this turn? Yes, there's right here a bridge, and this was the trail. This was the actual trail. So Wilson Creek approach. Yeah. Again, map. Where are we? Yeah, there we are, right on that line. Used it so much that night. So walking up in the dark in the trees, just like we did all frickin' spring. I think there wasn't one trip this spring that we got up before 2 a.m. or no. Yeah, the latest we woke up was 3 a.m. Yeah, it was a good spring. So anyways, you walk up for, I would say, about 3 miles. and then once you start kind of really going up, this was like this escarpment that you really start punching it up before you get into the Alpine and then into this Abbey Chute. This is the first place I got service and had to double check the weather, because when we got up there, all of a sudden it was like, I thought the weather was supposed to be clear today, and this whole mountain was totally socked in, and it was super nuclear windy, and so it was a decision point. The good thing was we had a direct access to viewpoint into Ridgeway, and so kind of actually got a little spot of service, so I was able to check the weather and saw sort of a hole that was coming. So this was a good decision making point of trying to figure out, are we going to turn around or are we going to keep going? As you approach, you kind of just keep meandering up this Wilson Creek approach. Well, we actually had to make a call because we were thinking like, well, if this weather is going to be that nasty and we want to ski the Snake Couloir, we can just boot up the Couloir, because if we boot up the Couloir, you can boot up in kind of nastier conditions and not have to rappel in super heavy winds off the summit. But part of the allure of doing these lines is like doing stuff like rappelling off the summit. So we decided, we're like, well, if we're going to do it, let's do it like the way you're supposed to do it, or not supposed to do it, but the way that would be kind of cool, the way I want to do it, which is get to the summit of the mountain and ski and rappel off of it and ski down. That seems like kind of a fun, cool thing to do. It makes it part of the adventure. So we decided, you're like, well, let's just go for it and hope it clears. And sure enough, it did clear. So you kind of go up this south, let's see what aspect it is, this southeast facing gully, and start ski touring. You pretty much ski tour all the way to this col, which is pretty awesome that you can make it up to almost, God, was it 13? What is the vert right here? Let's see. I don't even know. I can't figure it out. Where's the topo lines? Where's there? Where's the numbers? There we go. Come on. Oh yeah, you can, geez, 13,400. You can ski tour to like within 500 feet of the summit, which is pretty dang awesome. So this was Julian and I ski touring in what was still very stormy conditions, still punching it up, going like, hope it clears while we're making our way up. All the way to this col, kind of the southwest col. And then you go up this couloir to the summit. It was socked in at one moment, and then all of a sudden it cleared out. It was crazy. So only then do you need to put on crampons, is once you get to that col. So as far as gear goes, you do need ice axes if you like climbing with ice axes. And you do need crampons, because this couloir, oops, didn't click on that correctly. The couloir is steep enough to warrant wanting crampons. Crampons also are used to make things more efficient, in my opinion. It's not just for safety. You actually climb easier. Like, you don't have to put as much energy into each step balancing. You just step, step, step. It's really easy. And then, obviously it does make it safer. On a day like that day, I brought, I think, one axe. You don't necessarily need two axes. Not super steep, not super exposed. There's one move of kind of exposure. I don't know if I have any photos of it, but once you get to this little col, you kind of got to traverse over this little rock rib. I would say it's like sort of a fourth class move at best. You got to be a little comfortable with exposure, but you probably should be comfortable with exposure if you're going to wrap off the summit of a 14,000 foot mountain in the first place. So yeah, one little fourth class move right about here, and then you kind of boot back up to the summit. So here's kind of the summit photo that we had. So as I mentioned, so if you watch the episode, you've got to rappel in off the summit. There was a fixed line up there. Don't trust that there's going to be a fixed line. You need a 60-meter rope or two 30-meter ropes to wrap in the full length. Sounds like there is another anchors to, if you were looking up, to the climber's left or to the skier's right, and you could use shorter ropes. We didn't find those anchors. We wrapped in off the summit. That was the main anchors we found. So there are different options. You can read about that beta somewhere. But yeah, our decision to use that fixed rope, wouldn't call it the necessary best decision, but we tested it to a point where we ended up fixing the anchor. The rope seemed strong enough. It felt like a very thick, quite new rope. The anchor was very new, like freshly put in within the last week or two. So, you know, you definitely want to test anchors that other people put in. But if you're going to be going up there, bring material to build your own anchors, bring your own ropes. Don't trust that that stuff's going to be up there, because you want to get up there and not have to be like, oh my God, there's no anchor, there's no ropes. I guess we're not skiing the Snake Couloir and I have to walk back down. So, yeah, wrapping off the summit. It's kind of part of the adventure, part of the fun. The Snake Couloir then is kind of, it was really cool the way it drops in. You can kind of see how like it comes into this little valley right here. You know, this ramp that's just like super beautiful, looking out over just, is so beautiful looking over the vista. And then it's kind of the crux of the couloir is, you know, in these photos are all out of order. The crux of couloir is actually when it turns after it doglegs. So when this upper section, moderately steep, let's check out the aspect of it. It is due north facing. Yeah, it is pretty, with a little bit of west, but pretty dang north. And then this lower section, it's got north, but it's got a little bit east, but it's so sheltered that it almost doesn't matter. You're just pretty much in the dark the entire time. So aspect doesn't matter as much. Slope angle, let's take a look at it. It's, yeah, right in there, 44, 45 maybe. This upper section, I thought it was kind of mellow. It wasn't too bad. And then it kind of got steeper as you turned. The crux is definitely this lower section. This lower section gets narrow enough and steep enough that you got to be a strong, confident skier to want to ski this. It's narrow, it is steep. We had to sidestep quite a lot of it just because it was narrow enough that you couldn't really make turns. If you had shorter skis, you could make turns, but I had 188s and the Couloir was probably like 190 wide. So that just makes for not that fun a turn. So we ended up making a bonus decision to not just ski out the bottom where we went. I had scouted on the day before that there was potentially these bonus couloirs over on this side and that we could kind of ski our way out. And then this is what's really cool about maps is that I had downloaded the maps and I was like, dude, you can kind of ski right back to the trailhead. I'm very convinced. And I was able to pull up the hybrid map, look at the topo and be like, if that's 10,600 feet, down right there is 9,400 feet. So we got 1,000 feet to work with of traversing. Like we've got plenty of room to traverse out of here. And so we got bonus lines because you got maps. And sure, I did a little scouting the day before just by looking up the valley and seeing that there was lines, but to have that confidence to be like, no, let's do a quick little hike once we get out of this couloir and let's get some bonus skiing in instead of just skiing kind of all the way down and then just skiing a trail. Like we got to ski more vertical feet and more open couloirs, primarily because one, we scouted, two, we had maps downloaded, and that's kind of the beauty of having 3D maps. So yeah, this was where we ended up getting to hike back up this short little pitch, maybe a couple hundred feet. I have terrible photos, and skiing this couloir and then traversing out through here all the way back down to our trailhead. Yeah, that's the line itself. This was something I had marked, the Sneffels bonus that I kind of wanted to ski, but once we got up here, we realized there was almost no snow on this aspect. So if we were going to ski and then traverse back to here, it was going to be a nightmare to get back. I was like, oh, we could ski to here, this trail, then hike back, and it was just going to be an absolute nightmare. So Sneffels, is a beautiful mountain. For the amount of people that I would heard had skied it that week, definitely seemed like a classic. I would have. It's definitely in the 100 classics. It has to be in the 100 classics. For 50 plus, it would go in the ad addendum book for sure. Um, on the serious scale, it's a more challenging line. It's a big line. It's 14er, but like definitely aspirational line and one of the most beautiful spots. Mount Sneffels itself is, it's funny, it's got a very kind of almost diminutive name for how impressive of a mountain it is. So, yeah, if you have any questions about it specifically, ask in the comments below. Otherwise, that is this episode of Behind the Line 50 Plus. Thank you for tuning in.